Eli used to start his day with one small promise. Just 5 minutes on my phone. 5 minutes turned into 45. He'd scroll through headlines, skim messages, bounce between tabs. No urgency, no real purpose, just noise. By the time he looked up, he felt drained, but hadn't done anything. And that was how most of his days began. He wasn't lazy. In fact, he hated wasting time. But somehow, he always felt behind, distracted, foggy, like his mind was constantly running, but never arriving. He tried planners, tried productivity hacks, set timers, made lists. But the problem wasn't time. It was attention. His brain felt like a room with 10 radios playing at once. None of them tuned in. He couldn't hear his own thoughts over the mental static. His ideas didn't go deep. His motivation didn't last. And every night, he'd say the same thing to himself. Tomorrow, I'll focus. But tomorrow never came. Because the distractions weren't just around him. They were inside him now. Wired in. Constant. Expected. And slowly, they were pulling him away from who he used to be. Eli didn't notice how loud the world had become because it had been loud for so long. Notifications, headlines, group chats, algorithms. His phone lit up more often than his ideas did. Even when he wasn't holding his device, he was thinking about it, wondering if someone had replied, if he'd missed something, if he was falling behind. It wasn't addiction in the dramatic sense. He could put the phone down. But mentally, he never left the loop. He caught himself mid-task, checking something random, starting one thing and jumping to another before finishing the first. Every distraction felt small, harmless, until they piled into a wall between him and his own life. One afternoon, he tried to sit and write, something he hadn't done in weeks. 10 minutes in, he checked his email, then the weather, then the news, then nothing in particular. When he looked up, an hour had passed, and he had written a single sentence. That was the moment he realized the spiral wasn't going to stop on its own. It wasn't going to get better with time. Because distraction wasn't just wasting his day, it was shaping his mind. That evening, Eli sat alone in his room, lights dimmed, no sound, just the quiet he'd been avoiding. It didn't feel peaceful. It felt uncomfortable. His mind spun with noise that had nowhere to go. Unfinished thoughts, open tabs in his brain, conversations he hadn't processed, notifications he hadn't responded to. He realized something that night. He had forgotten how to be bored, how to be still, how to be with himself without input. Every moment had become filled, by default, not by decision. And that's when it hit him. Distraction wasn't the cause of his mental exhaustion. It was the mask covering it. The noise wasn't random. It was a shield, protecting him from discomfort, from focus, from the deeper work. Because clarity comes with silence. And silence isn't always soothing. Sometimes it's a mirror. He wrote in his notebook, "My attention is bleeding. I need to stop the leak." He didn't know how yet, but he knew he couldn't keep going like this. He didn't need a productivity system. He needed discipline of mind. If your mind feels noisy and scattered, hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because focus isn't found, it's trained. The next morning, Eli made a quiet promise to himself. 1 hour. No phone, no noise, no multitasking, just him, a notebook, and silence. The first 10 minutes were torture. His hand reached for his phone out of habit. Not need, habit. His thoughts jumped like static electricity, desperate for a hook, a fix, a feed. But he stayed seated, breathed, refocused. He wrote one sentence, then another. They weren't profound, but they were his, unfiltered, undistracted. That hour felt like a breakthrough, because it wasn't about output, it was about presence. Eli began doing this daily, a ritual, not a rule, No pressure, just practice. And slowly, the noise started losing its grip. He noticed his thoughts had more space. His focus stretched longer. He began finishing what he started. Not faster, but clearer. He created a rule. Nothing digital in the first hour of his day. No inputs before his own mind had a chance to speak. And for the first time in years, he was beginning to hear himself again. Not the noise, not the world. Him. The changes weren't instant, but they were real. Eli didn't become a monk or delete every app. He still had a phone, still used social media. But now, he decided when. Not the algorithm, not the dopamine. His mind began to settle. There was more room between stimulus and response. More clarity between idea and action. He was no longer sprinting through his days, reacting to every ping. He was responding on his terms. And it showed. He could now sit through a full conversation without glancing at his phone, finish a task without opening 5 other tabs, even walk without earbuds in just to hear the world again. The spiral hadn't vanished, but it had slowed. One night he wrote, "My thoughts no longer chase me. I walk beside them now." That line made him pause, because it was the first time he felt in partnership with his mind, instead of being ruled by it. He still had distractions. He still had noisy days. But now, he had tools, and awareness, and space. And sometimes space is all we really need. Eli noticed something unexpected. As the noise faded, emotions surfaced. Old doubts, unprocessed grief, fears he had numbed with scrolling, clicking, jumping from one thing to the next. It wasn't easy, facing the thoughts he had buried under distraction. But now, he had the mental stillness to sit with them. Not fight, not fix, just sit. He realized distraction wasn't only stealing his time, it was shielding him from his truth. And the truth wasn't always pretty, but it was real. He began journaling more, not just to be productive, but to be honest. He wrote about things he hadn't admitted in years, worries about his future, regrets from the past, even dreams he was afraid to speak out loud. It was messy, but freeing. And in that mess, he found momentum. He started scheduling white space in his calendar, blocks of time for nothing, no meetings, no calls, just being, recalibrating. He stopped feeling guilty for slow mornings. He stopped apologizing for unread messages. Because now, he understood. Focus isn't a luxury, it's a responsibility. And clarity doesn't scream. It waits, quietly, for you to make room. Weeks passed. Eli no longer measured his days by how much he got done, but by how present he felt while doing it. His work had more depth. His conversations had more patience. Even his mistakes felt different, less reactive, more reflective. People noticed. "You seem calmer lately," a friend said. Eli didn't explain much. He just nodded and smiled. Because how do you explain that the loudest change in your life was made in silence? He started helping others without overextending. Started showing up without being everywhere. His focus no longer came from discipline alone. It came from choice. He chose what to consume, what to ignore, what to honor. And above all, he chose to protect the most valuable thing he had rediscovered, his attention. Not for productivity, not for image, but for presence. One morning, he sat on his balcony, sipping coffee, watching the sky shift colors. No music, no scrolling, just stillness. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he was missing anything. Because everything that mattered was already here. Eli didn't become superhuman. He still got distracted, still had messy days, still reached for his phone when he didn't need to. But now, he noticed. And noticing changed everything. He stopped seeing focus as a finish line and started seeing it as a daily practice, a way of living. a rhythm. One that wasn't always perfect, but always possible. He no longer chased clarity through control. He found it in permission to slow down, to pause, to begin again. His mind, once scattered like shattered glass, now felt more like a still lake. Not because life had gotten quieter, but because he had. He learned to put his thoughts on paper before the world could fill his head with its own. He learned to protect the first hour of his day like a sacred space. He learned that what you feed your attention becomes your reality. And in that truth, he found something deeper than discipline. He found peace, not because everything was perfect, but because he had finally learned how to live fully with himself.